Hey everybody, welcome back. Jimmy here from Explore the Force, and we're joined by a special guest today, Patrick from Poptography. Patrick, how are you today?
Very good, very good. Thanks for having me on, Jimmy.
Awesome. I'm so glad you could join us. You guys have had me on the show a few times. I think Taylor too. Not necessarily your joint show, sorry. Why don't you just go ahead and start off telling people about yourself, what it is you do, and then I'll ask you some questions so people can see your Star Wars expertise,
Okay.
and then we'll dive into why we're talking today.
All right. So my name's Patrick. I go by Poptography, and you can find me on YouTube by Poptography. On all the other social media, I go by Poptography YT. And that was actually part of a rebranding that we did back in like December, trying to launch for the new year. So I've been doing this for about a year and a half, where I do creative images of Star Wars Funko Pop. I was just trying to think of something to keep that creative edge. I had been a contract still photographer for Mr. Potato Head for a bit, and after we got laid off, I started working in IT, and I just needed something to kind of keep that creative mojo.
Look at that.
You know, one of the things, I had worked for Apple for a number of years, and after 8 years of have been around that culture at Apple, one of the things we learned is to take what you're passionate about and take what you're looking for that you can put your skill sets to career-wise. And when you can come across and they like both like kind of intermingle, where it's like no brainer, like you have all these things, they're readily available, you're very knowledgeable of them, that's what you should do. And so I was, during COVID, walking around and just, kind of kicking in the house because you couldn't really go anywhere, do anything. And I had been collecting the Funko Pops from a random thing. My mom got me like a smuggler's bounty. So I kind of got hooked on that. And so I started collecting them. And so I figured, well, maybe I should blend my love of photography and Star Wars by photographing my collection. I mean, I have them readily available, So, and I have a plethora of them, so I could do a lot of different characters. I think of all, in a year and a half, almost 2 years, I've only repeated like maybe one or two like pops, but I've redone them in a different way.
Okay.
But I really shoot them one time and move on to something different, which is great because Star Wars has great characters that allows me to do that. And Funko has made a lot of really great Funko Pops of great iconic Star Wars moments and characters. So it's been pretty easy to kind of have some steady content. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So and a lot of times too is just to have that creative edge. My wife was like, well, I support you because it's not like you're going out to bars or doing anything like that. She's like, so you buy a Funko Pop here and there. You sit down, you do some YouTube videos shooting it. And she just really thinks it's a great outlet for me.
Yeah.
Because I need that creative outlet. And it's kind of become its own thing, Jimmy, because if you asked me a year and a half ago, like during COVID, when I was thinking this idea, maybe I should do this and, I'll do some YouTube. I would have never thought that I would be doing this. I would have a YouTube channel. I would be shooting Funko Pops on the regular. It just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of became something out of nothing, But I think that's why I'm following it, because it's like following your heart, because I really enjoy it. And apparently people enjoy it. I have plenty of followers and subscribers. I'm not like Tony from Star Wars Sith, where he's, jumping over the 5K mark or anything, but it's a slow burn, but I've been enjoying the ride so far. I get to meet people like you and Chris and Lex, my co-stars on the Star Wars podcast. It's just opened up it's kicked down doors that I would have never known were even around to be open.
Yeah, I would 100%. Like you and I wouldn't be talking right now if it wasn't for Star Wars and what we do. And I really enjoy your behind the scenes. Like your photos are awesome, but I like watching when you video how you set up and things like that. I really love the fact that you kind of let us in you let us behind the curtain on how you're doing things. It's like you're your own ILM
Go into magic,
video.
right? Yep. The myth
Yeah,
behind the magic.
yeah. So
Well,
it's really
it's funny because people ask about that and they say, well, aren't you afraid you're going to show someone your techniques and they're going to do the same thing? I said, well, I just want to explain to you. I said, whether you study history or photography or you pick up your camera for the first time, art imitates art and you're imitating someone else. It's already all been done before. Maybe now we're pushing the boundaries by using different mediums or different technologies. And so I don't mind showing people. And in fact, the reason I even chose using my iPhone was because, when you do this as your day job and you're bringing out medium format cameras, SLRs, with all the bells and whistles of lenses, you almost wanted to, for me, I wanted to simplify it and challenge myself because I said, well, okay, I get some really great vacation. I no longer have to take my SLR on vacation. I can get great vacation photos. I know how to manipulate this tool. So I started thinking, well, if I could show people how to do it, make it so simple with just your phone, it demystifies it. And the breakdowns, I just literally show everything I do because I want to encourage other people to learn this and pick it up whether it's a hobby or something they really want to get into professionally. So you could start, the best camera you have is the one you have on you. So if you have a phone, start with that, and that's why I kind of kept that up. I think that I only took one image with my Canon, SLR camera. Wow. Otherwise, everything has been shot, and I don't even show that image. It was like one of the very first images. I do everything with the phone, and over the last 2 years, I've even kind of developed the style. As weird as that sounds, like I almost have like a recipe where I use like 5 lume cubes, and I know where I want to move them, and I can kind of picture the light. And it started to change. At one point, I was just shooting them in the pure darkness. I'd go down to my basement, right to the boiler room, and it's nasty walls. So I was like, oh, don't need to see anything back there. I'm just gonna shoot at the dark of night. So at 10 at night, I'd be going downstairs, shooting a pop, lighting it up, hanging it off the water pipes and stuff in the basement. Because I've got those kind of like those gorilla kind of tripods where you can so the really small ones for them. So I was literally hanging them off, and I could slide them up and back. It was a great place. But I was like, I kind of want to step it up a notch, not just have they looked great because they were just against a black backdrop, but I kind of started to want more depth and more something that was missing. And then I started using what I call the virtual volume, using my computer screen as a backdrop. And so in between that, some of my display dioramas and other things, sometimes I'll bring them outside and shoot them on a location. But a lot of times I'm doing them here in my little workspace here. And it's just been kind of cool. It's just been fun. It's just been a lot of fun. So I'm glad that because I didn't know if anyone would pay attention or care if I showed how I did it.
I
at first I wasn't even I was just showing here's a time lapse, and then here's the image. And Christopher's like, that's cool, but you should probably show more. He's like, people dig that. I even did a couple where I showed some of the behind the scenes Photoshop, but I felt like I was boring people to death with that. So I don't know. I might add that back one day. We'll see.
I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff out there for people, and I'm sure there are people that enjoy that. But yeah, I really like those. I love the art, the photos you're taking, and then I got to, some of your shorts and things like that. I kind of got into. I really like watching that, like your setup and things. So very cool, very cool. You go check it out. Do you sell the art? Do you sell them, like the photos? Because some of them are pretty.
That's it's a very good question. So I do have a shop on Shopify, where I think I've only picked out 2 images to have as metal prints. But I have some large metal prints, some photography swag there. But I am working to the March of 500 now subscribers. So on the road, I've just passed 400 subscribers the other day.
Wow,
so
awesome.
What I am going to be, here's a little preview for you.
Excellent.
You get a little special something.
Woo!
So what I plan to do for the
folks.
March to 500, when we get to 500 subscribers, is I'm going to have some canvas prints made.
Oh,
And I'm going to let the winners, we're going to have a contest, and we're going to let the winners pick from anything in my Insta profile grid.
oh,
So you can
wow.
pick any image you want from my portfolio of images, and you get a 16 by 20 and maybe a larger print. So
Wow.
some exciting stuff to come.
Yeah.
Exciting stuff.
Well, that's
Because
awesome.
I don't. The only images I have are my mixed tiles that I have
Mhm.
here, and I had gifted a bunch at Christmas time to the podcast, to Lex and Christopher, and to my Fulcrum friends, our little social media group. So like uh, Tony from Star Wars Sith, Noah from Noah Rogue Nation, Eric from Sire Speed, Ricky from Pop the Bounty Collector, um, Will from Padawan Pops, Andrea from Padawan Chronicles. I'm trying to think, making sure I didn't miss anybody. I think I got everybody. But yeah, I just gifted them just because I wanted them to have some. We became pretty close friends over the last year or so,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to put my artwork out there and share it with them. It's
Very
one thing
cool.
to kind of see it on a device; it's another to have it hanging on your wall.
Oh,
So,
yeah, for sure.
it was kind of I think they all were really kind of surprised, but I did let some of them pick out who their characters, because I said, okay, I'm going to get like say 20 of them printed. So you pick out what one you want. And so oh, I want this one. Is Vader still available? No, Vader's gone. They're like, ah. But it was a lot of fun to do that.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So let's dive into some Star Wars questions for you.
Okay.
What movie or show? I mean, you're closer to my age. I think I had a young kid on last week, so he asked about the shows. But what movie would you say pulled you into Star Wars and made you, you obviously love it. People have heard you talking. You're passionate about it. You can tell from all the stuff you just said. What pulled you into Star Wars?
Well, first, I just want to comment, because I watched your last episode with that young girl on. Was it the mean?
Yeah, the Phantom Memes,
Yes.
Alina.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great interview. Great interview. And she was, for her age, she showed so much maturity and great thought. So shout out to her, and for you for bringing her on. That was a great show. Great
Thank
show.
you. Yeah, I was impressed. Working with teenagers
It's
every
things
day.
like that inspire me to be more of a Star Wars fan. When you see that in the younger generations, and they love Star Wars, they have respect for everyone's opinions, and can talk intelligently. It was great.
Yeah.
But what got me into Star Wars, and kind of like, it was going to the first film. I think it was A New Hope. Just seeing that ship just slowly crawl over and engulf the screen, and you're seeing the back end, like, that had me hook, line, and sinker. Get the net. Like, that was it. Like, Darth Vader coming in, that first scene, like, you don't know what was going on. Like, literally, many movies, you at least get some kind of precursor of what's going on. These guys are getting boarded, and and boom, right off the bat, you're like, that's the baddest guy I'm ever going to meet. Like, it was awesome.
Yeah.
So I think that, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And then growing, and I said this the other day, growing up with Star Wars, your perspective changes and your views change, and the meanings behind things change. So,
Oh yeah.
So I'm watching the first movie in what, 5, 6? I'm in kindergarten, right? I was just before kindergarten, and for me, it was like everything. Like, that was it. Like, Star Wars, I was, Darth Vader for Halloween. I was super happy that, So it was started in kindergarten, and then you grow a little older, and then you get Empire Strikes Back. But in those years from seeing the first one and the second one, at first you're kind of like, oh, nice, there's going to be lightsabers and blasters and spaceships. But it was a lot deeper this time. And you realize as a kid, you're like, oh, there's something about that one. And then Vader, the big reveal, Vader's the father. So this movie became more than just blasters and lightsabers for me as a kid. I was like, huh. And then you get to Return of the Jedi. So what, 2, 3 more years later, you get the final and it just has this great story. Like it's Shakespearean tragedy. It's great, right? And so you kind of mature with it, and each one hits differently, but then it makes you reflect back on certain moments and points in it. And then you go 35 years of nothing, and then you get, all the new
Dark Ages.
Yeah, the Dark Ages, like most older guys know, or older fans, guys, girls, So now you have all this content, and I don't understand why people want to hate on this. Like, because if all I hated was on the first 3 movies, man, I would have had a boring life. Like, because those 3 movies were bangers. I don't know how many times I've watched them in every format. Like, I remember my uncle had the 8-track in his car, with the Star Wars disco going. He had the reel to reel with A New Hope that, like, we'd have to set up, and I was like, I felt like he stole it from a movie theater or something. Like, where did you get this? Like, just crazy. And then VHS, DVD. So I've seen it and watched it so many different formats, every rendition of it. But when you grow up with it, it changes things, and I think your perspective changes. Like, I was talking to Brandon from Clan Brandalorian, and he's expecting.
Yeah,
and
I was saying, one on the way.
Yeah, and I
said,
you're going to understand some of these storylines more now, like what's going on with Omega and the Bad Batch, what's going on with Anakin when he's leaving his mother to go to the temple and train, and how that would affect you as a parent, even, let alone the child. Like, now when you have a kid and you have a better understanding of that dynamic, because it hits home for you.
Yeah.
Those points in Star Wars are going to have a different heartbeat for you now. And it's going to make you think of every storyline slightly different, future things differently. So that's one thing I do like, it because it's so rooted in really great mythology to build these really great characters and a story that's more than good guy, bad guy, blasters, this and that. There's always something more heartfelt, something more tugging on your heartstrings of sacrifice, and things like that. That's always on the line. And I think as you grow up with watching all the content of Star Wars now that you have, especially this younger generation, because they got to boom since the prequels, it's been like nonstop. Great for them, and great for the old school fans, because you keep getting new stuff, and some of it, kind of, some of it's geared for kids, and that's okay. But every once in a while, there's something cool in there to find or watch or see from a different perspective. But I've kind of been just hooked through it all. The fandom has been excellent, I would say, up until recent years, because I think the fans, for a long time, I felt fans were closeted fans of Star Wars.
Oh,
like,
I feel that
way. Am I wrong on that? Like, I felt like I was a Star Wars fan, and like, oh yeah, he's a Star Wars fan. But it wasn't like it is now, like, where there's so many people. It's like on St. Patrick's Day, everyone wants to be Irish. Everybody wants to be a Star Wars fan now. Yeah. When we were growing up, and there was those years of nothingness, and you mentioned like Star Wars your favorite film, like you kind of got that nerd, nerds.
Definitely more mainstream now.
Yes,
which is good.
And it's cool, right? I mean, you got people cosplaying Star Wars characters. Like, years ago, you wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of cool. And I just like where things have gone with Star Wars. Like, I 100% fans of the sequels. I liked it. I like parts of them. And so I compartmentalized the pieces of the film that I like, the scenes.
Yeah.
Right? There's really great scenes. There's really great acting. It still has that kind of dialogue that only Lucas could write, but it doesn't sound like anything, but it has some meaning to it. So I have enjoyed that. I think that when we got the new series, The Mandalorian, blew me away. Away. I love that. So series wise, that's one. Animation, Star Wars Rebels took my heart. There's a lot of tropes that they kind of pulled on for the fans like how I was really hooked on the Star Destroyer coming over into New Hope. Same thing happens in the very intro. Ezra in the tower, and the Star Destroyer comes over, and it had that same like. For me, as soon as I saw that, I said, whoever wrote or directed the photography for these frames that I'm watching in animation is a serious fan and someone that feels it right here. Because I was like, wow, that's the opening 30 seconds. Like you're already tugging on them, like because it was like, if I put this in, I know someone's going to know where I'm, harkening back from, where that Easter egg's from. So I was really pumped, and I thought it was a really cool story. And Ezra became this young, unheard of Jedi that like I wanted more. Like I felt like even we got to finally see him. Spoiler alert in Ahsoka, finally get a hold of him. Barely got to see him for that much, but I can't wait to see where we go further with him, because I think we'll have great. I see him training Jason, like those two being thicker than thieves, like Kanan was to him. And that's what makes Star Wars. Again, it's that family bond, like those traditions. It's what wraps it all into a nice, neat package that everybody just wants to enjoy it, and when they do enjoy it and embrace it, there's so much of it to enjoy, and there's so much fandom. Like I said, it brings people like us together.
Oh yeah,
we would have never met had it not been Star Wars, and happen to have experiences with other creators in this field. So
very cool. Awesome answer. How are you feeling about season 3 of the Bad Batch? Overall,
I'm liking it. I did feel I was excited to see Fennec, but it did feel kind of like filler. It had that kind of like you've got your X-Files, and then you got the Freak of the Week episode. But it kind of at the end, there's something that moves the story along for the next one. It kind of had that recipe to it. Me. I think a lot of our Floridian friends got that Floridian vibe with the alligators and the swamp and all that. So I thought that was funny, but I do think it's been an excellent series so far. The animation has gotten even better than Clone Wars, better than the previous season. I like the camera angles I know it's not really always shooting the camera, it's the way they're angling it, but as a photographer and someone that looks at the imagery and still frames, it's so well done. And so I'm very excited to see where we go. I don't think it's going to end well. And something that I'm kind of plotting and theorizing in my head now is, so I'm thinking that Omega could have blood that had been siphoned from Sifo Dyas when he went to order the clones on the sly. It's one of my theories. Maybe that's where she gets the midichlorian count.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about Asajj Ventress and Quinlan, and then you have the Quinlan mentioned by Obi-Wan during the Kenobi series, and they have the thing, the path. It's like the Underground Railroad for Jedi. So I'm like, okay. Just before getting on here, I was rewatching Visions 2, where they had that Indian kind of Bollywood animated one.
That one's awesome.
Oh,
I love that one.
And
I love the whole series, but
that was so good, man. And when you watch that again, when the little old lady she's the Jedi, and she's like, oh no, you're not going. You need to let her go. Dude, it was almost the same speech Asajj has. So with the batch. So I'm like, were they kind of hinting at something there that like you got to really be paying attention to when you watch it? So I'm hoping it's going to end with somebody taking her through the path, or to be part of the path, something. I have a feeling a bunch of them are going to sacrifice their lives. I think we're going to lose some characters over the next few. I honestly thought we'd be ticking them down like that right now.
Yeah.
Because you got to cry, and you don't want to keep crying. You have to have your Star Wars tissues available. So maybe they're saving it for one big ending. I don't know. Would they bring Vader? People are like rumored Will they bring Vader in? I don't know. They could, but typically when you bring Vader in, he almost dominates.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're bringing him in, you can only really bring him in at the end to end them. Like, okay, no one's really successful. Bring in the big dog. You know, I don't know. I hope one of the clones does escape with her to get her out and whatnot. Could we get a spin-off series for this, for live action more? I don't know. Could we see any of this kind of spawn off to Skeleton Crew? Maybe have a little connection or tie. I don't know. You know, I'm surprised we didn't get any connections with like Book of Boba or anything like that. Because when I honestly was wondering if that female Tusken that was training him, I was hoping and cross my fingers, like, how cool would that be if that was Omega and she had no idea, and then she reveals herself later. That would have been cool. But
that would have been cool.
Again, maybe that was too neatly wrapped up to be simple, and maybe it can be more complex. Kind of probably where we're heading now. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping we get some spin-off shows, like maybe the show The Clones fighting to see what happens. I don't know what we're getting, but I don't think it's going to be good for the batch.
No.
We're going to lose.
Yeah. I think they're setting some things up.
2 or 3, yeah. I think we're losing some numbers.
So, all right. So we're going to dive into this Bad Batch Season 3, Episode 9, The Harbinger. It was written by Jennifer Corbett. She's also an executive producer. She's always the second one on the credits after Dave Filoni. I feel like she is to Dave what Dave was to George, as far as being a Padawan. And then, of course, Harbinger means something that foreshadows a future event. And I feel like there's a lot of stuff that was foreshadowed in this. And it starts as soon as the opening scene when they show Pabu. And I'm so scared for this planet. Every time I see it, I just keep waiting for the Empire to show up and just lay waste to it.
Star Destroyers just hovering over it.
Coming out of light speed and coming into atmosphere and leveling it. And one of the things, what is Asajj? Obviously everyone knows that she's in this episode by this point. What is she foreshadowing? So, opening scene, beautiful island. It shows Crosshair and Wrecker. Crosshair might be my spirit animal because I'm about as grumpy as he is most days. So I love that guy.
Funny, Jimmy.
And then, of course, it moves to Omega and Batcher out there, and she comes up to a cave. And this is kind of where I want to talk about the most is, you're relating like certain things to other things in Star Wars. I got a feeling of like Dagobah, Luke going into the cave. I kept waiting for something to happen, or Rey on Octo. I kind of assumed who it was in there, but did that do anything to you? How was that opening half?
I was wondering if we were going to get a Jedi trial of some sort. Mm-hmm. I knew when Batcher was sniffing around and kind of going, I figured we were going to run into Asajj there. I couldn't believe that. As soon as I kind of saw that, I'm like, oh, they're leading this. But, that's one thing I think about Filoni and some of the newer Star Wars. They don't necessarily beat around the bush to throw cameos or introduce someone. They throw it right in the beginning saying, get right with the story with that character. Enough of it throughout that episode. So I was excited for that. That was awesome. But yeah, I got a little more of that. I want to see you train. I want to see you concentrate. And I think just from her kind of watching Omega do like the balancing and stuff, because it was kind of interesting because she wasn't really doing well in it, but she's also not practiced in it, right?
Yeah.
But I think she feels much like Luke can feel, Grogu's feelings a little bit, like Ahsoka can. Like they kind of have the intuition, like Qui-Gon finding Anakin in the first place. He kind of had that, like, there's something about this kid. The Force is calling me to him. I think she's feeling that, and she's getting that vibe easily. So I did get some cool connections into that. I didn't know if it was more Ahch-To, but I thought we were gonna get more of that kind of Jedi trial kind of thing that Luke kind of
Yeah.
experienced. Like it didn't pan out. Like it was something different. It was kind of different, like more instructing on the Force, and maybe not necessarily calling on something. As we see later, it comes. And I wasn't sure if it was going after those little things, or because it had like that green stuff out of its mouth,
Yeah.
glowing. So I wasn't sure those things swimming around. Is that what it was eating and it was drawn to that, or did she draw? I have no idea. But that made me think of Ezra a little bit with those
Oh yeah.
night creaturey things that he got that giant one to come up, the mother of them.
Yeah.
So that's what that gave me some harken back to that. But I'm curious when she was talking to the batch about like how you guys really should be. I mean, she says it several times, like right in the beginning, like, yeah, for a bunch of clones that are trying to be on the run, not doing such a great job being undercover, especially this one, knowing like there's a serious bounty out and you're just letting her roam around and she's just hopping in the caves all like, hey. So I get it. Like she was Asajj was on the money with that, but at the very end, she kind of said like, you guys think you're safe. Like if I could find you, like, think about the Empire. Like,
Yeah.
and and she was also saying the Empire, what's he say, stronger or more evil, something more sinister, something than you could possibly imagine. Like, I think because she knows Palpatine, probably more so than a lot because of her Force abilities and her thing with Dooku, and then trying to, with Quinlan to get to, the Emperor and Dooku. So, I think that she's trying to kind of hint, wink, wink. Like there is something a lot more evil going on. And maybe she might even know more what's going on with the clones than they do.
Yeah. I mean,
Only because she's a bounty hunter and maybe she's had to come in contact with some of those assassin ones. I don't know. But it seems like she's hinting at a lot at the end.
Yeah, that's why the Harbinger, like what all is she foreshadowing? And like you said, multiple times she tells them it wasn't hard to find you. You need to get out of here. And then that just like that opening scene with the island, I was like, oh, this place is going to get leveled eventually.
Yeah, Space Grease is going to be available for vacancy soon.
She keeps saying that stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what's going to happen next week? Because we got 2 episodes coming next week. But she does test her. Kind of gave me like Luke and Rey vibes a little bit with some of the testing, and of course, she says your blood doesn't make you a Jedi. I thought that was a pretty good line. So
yes,
it's about your training, and I don't know if if that's a shot at everybody, because like they've come out and said, of course, with like Sabine becoming a Jedi and all these different things, and everyone has midichlorians, I guess.
People forget Maz Kanata is supposed to have knowledge and use of the Force, but not a Jedi.
Yeah,
right. They cut a scene where she pulls some of the rocks from the temple onto some stormtroopers that were coming in. Now that was a deleted scene we didn't see. And then she kind of has that vibe, like she knows what's going on. Like when she touches Finn and she sees Rey with the Luke's legacy lightsaber there. Like, so she's got a lot more going on than people realize. But I don't think we've ever really explored other people that might have Force capability and not really know how to use it or harness it. They just have really good intuition, like kind of how we found Ezra.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's a good point. There's a lot more of that coming out in Star Wars now too, like some of the High Republic stuff. There's characters and different things like that, and they're talking about pirates with the Force and just different things. And then, of course, most people. Did you read Dark Disciple? The storyline. Okay, but most people. I mean, I say most people. Anyone who's watching our podcast probably has read Dark Disciple, but spoiler alert, and I should have probably given a spoiler warning at the beginning of this, but she dies in that book.
She gets off.
Um,
She sacrifices herself to save
yeah, I
Quinlan.
mean, she comes a long way, and then you still see flashes of it. There are multiple examples of Asajj being nice. She's grumpy, but she does it.
She's prickly. She's prickly.
Yes. Getting Omega out of the way so she could fight the clones when she heard him over talking. She didn't kill the clones.
But I mean, it was interesting. Her walking in, and I try to put myself again in the shoes of Omega. Like, so I'm thinking, like, so if my kids walked in and I was force choking someone, had them suspended in the air, lightsaber at someone's throat, what's my kid gonna think? And so that's kind of what she just walked into. Like, what the heck? What's going on here? And it's like, so I thought that was kind of interesting. And then she kept talking to them earlier about it, and again about change. Well, maybe she's changed. Well, you don't understand. She was like that. And she's like, well, maybe she's changed. You look at you, Crosshair. You changed, right?
Yeah.
And
I can't believe he piped up. Out of all of them, he's the one that piped up. I was like, dude.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. So she gave it right back to him. And I also thought it was kind of neat too when she was talking. I guess it was towards the end of their little skirmish, and she says something about whose side are you on? And she's like, mine. And she's like, we were both pawns. We were both pawns in the war, and we all lost.
Yeah, I have that written down.
I thought that was a really cool, because it kind of reminded me of what Obi-Wan said in his series. Like, we fought, we lost. And they lost all hope. He lost all hope in that.
Yeah.
And here she's kind of like going her own path, trying to find her own way. I don't know where this happens within that Quinlan,
See,
I'm thinking this is after it, and maybe
because of that based on one of her comments.
Yeah, I've got more lives or something. I still got a few more lives
left.
Yes.
So
I'm wondering if Quinlan, brought her back to Dathomir, did some dark magic. Who knows? Did something just to bring her back.
Because my understanding is that Dark Disciple kind of ends close to the end of like Revenge of the Sith, like right before Revenge of the Sith takes off. So if Order 66 came, does Quinlan go? Because then we have that connection with Quinlan and the Path during Kenobi. So, does he go back to see her because he doesn't know where else to go? He goes back to Dathomir to be safe, and then something crazy happens, or
I don't know. I have a feeling we might find that out, though. Maybe we'll get a the Jedi.
Do you think that? I guess a good question. Do you think this is the last time we see Asajj in this series?
Well, since the series is going to end, I don't know. We have so much on the line to tell the main big story of what's going on in Tansis. Are the clones going to be able to rescue their friends, their fellow clones? That's all on the line, and we got to get to that. And see what happens in the Bad Batch. So I don't mind this being a cameo, and that's it. Would love to see. If anything, I think we'll see her towards the very end again.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get like, I think honestly we'll see Fennec again, and I think we might see her again, and she might be the one to take Omega somewhere else.
See, that's been my theory, is that her and Quinlan are going to take Omega. And also last week, I don't know if you caught this or not, but they mentioned the Haxion Brood, right?
Yeah.
And that's, of course, from the video games, from the Cal Kestis video game.
Yes.
So I also wonder, are they connecting it to Talonor from the second game? Is that where the Path is taking Jedi, someplace that no one can get to them? And is it going to be like Cal Kestis is going to be training a small army of Jedi or something off to the, because they're starting to make all these connections. They brought Kenobi together. They bring Cal Kestis and the Haxion Brood together.
I would love to see Cal Kestis in something. That actor is a great actor, so I'd love to see him portray it live action. I mean, the game looks just like it, so it'd be perfect.
Yeah, I think there's a lot brewing. I think they do have a plan, Dave and all of them, and And of course, we're talking about, you know, again, the foreshadowing of things. And uh, she tells Omega out on the boat that they can't show you how to tap into it, right? It's different than being a soldier. Being a Jedi is not being a soldier.
Yeah.
Because Omega is really well trained. Like that kid, you know,
Oh, she
she
knows
can
all
do
the
everything.
plans, plan this, plan 87. And she,
Yeah.
you know, oh, tech. And remember, Crosshair's like, figured
Mm.
he would do that.
Yeah, of course
That's
he
like
did.
him. Yeah, of course he did.
Yeah. So like, you know, there's all this foreshadowing and stuff like that. And, you know, they can't show you. Then again, at the end, she says, you know, she basically lies to Omega, and then they call her out on it. And, you know, she tells the clones multiple times, like, you can't train her in what she needs. And they're like, well, she's not leaving. And Asajj's like, it doesn't matter what you want. It's what the kid needs. So I felt like, uh-oh, we're headed towards some heartache here.
It has to happen. It has to happen.
Are we going to get a Grogu and Mando thing, though, where it happens for 3 episodes and then they're back together? Are we going to get a legit, because the series is ending, are we going to get, you know, Quinlan and Asajj, or just Asajj herself is going to take, because we've seen it, we know Asajj is capable of love. You know, we saw her at the end of Clone Wars help Ahsoka.
Yeah.
We know she's, you know, and then of course, if you've read Dark Disciple, you know she falls in love with Quinlan. She sacrifices herself, so she has that in her. You know, and she has already shown a couple of signs of
too at one point. You know what I mean? They had to kind of befriend each other and be civil so they could fight a common enemy. So, I mean, she's very smart. She is very cunning. She knows her way around the galaxy. So I thought the comment, like, "What are you worried about the Empire?" She's like, "I'm not so worried about them." You know, her attitude is like, "They could try." You know, like, not so worried. So I thought that was pretty cool. She's got a lot of confidence. She's kind of like a dark version of Ahsoka. Like if Ahsoka chose to go a little bit off the beaten path, she'd be probably more like Asajj. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's probably a pretty good comparison if Ahsoka decided to go.
Because it seems like she's kind of going on that journey that Ahsoka is now on.
Yeah,
in her own way. You know?
Does it bum you out that, like, I think Asajj, like I always say this about Maul and Asajj, they would have been great Jedi had they been plucked, you know, or been found by the Jedi Order. They would have been amazing Jedi, I think. They'd have been like almost zealots, kind of, because they're so passionate, I mean, I guess that probably would have gotten them in trouble, but you know, they're so
Maul
focused.
wasn't, because Maul just looks too bad.
Well, yeah,
you know, awesome. He's just bad. Like, he's just, when you see him, he's just like, all right, Darth Vader's, he's a bad guy. This guy is just pure evil. He's the devil.
He does look.
He's a Star Wars devil. Like, he's just awesome. But Asajj just had a cool look to her. You know, that kind of like mouth kind of thing that she had going, and the shaved head. So the kind of Tony Hawk kind of haircut on her, kind of cool. My wife saw that. She's like, "That looked like you in high school, I think." I said, "Yeah, kind of." But we were laughing, and I just really thought that it's just kind of neat to see this all happening now, and where what's it? I have no idea where it's going. I'm excited. I'm kind of curious. Who do you think we're going to lose here on the Bad Batch? Do you think we're going to lose them? All of them, or do you think we're going to lose one or two?
I think we're losing all of them, personally, because you start running into this thing. We've talked about this a little bit on our show a couple times when we've done this. Where are all these people? Because, you know, like, they had to get rid of Ahsoka during the OT, because we know where all this is leading up to the original trilogy. These heroes can't be around, right? I mean, it's in their nature to help. So I feel like it'll be easier to, like, just take the clones out of it as far as those 3, but you could have her off with somebody else. I guess it also depends on, like, you know, what their plan is, I guess, how they're going to link everything together. But I don't think any of the Bad Batch make it out. I think that, like you said earlier, I think they all end up sacrificing. I did think that we would start losing people.
Off.
Yeah, and I said that to my friend Eric today. We watched it during my plan, but I was like, you know, the 3 of them are walking. I'm like, it just doesn't feel like the Bad Batch without Tech, which I'm glad they haven't brought him back, and I really hope he stays dead. I mean, that sacrifice had to mean something, but
yes, I agree.
it's kind of like it might be time to start taking them out. And I guess it'd be a little bit cheesy if they were all like sacrificing themselves every other week. They're sacrificing
No, I
themselves.
agree.
So
it's just
maybe one big act.
I think it's going to be my theory is Crosshair is going to make the shot, like, because it's they keep.
Oh
making
yeah,
it.
he's
going to make the shot that's going to do something, but it could be like he's making a shot and it's going to be the ultimate sacrifice, and he's going to give himself save one of the batch,
yeah.
to then continue. I don't know, and then I think it's going to be Wrecker next. It would be Crosshair then Wrecker, and I think you're going to get Wrecker and Hunter on this, and either really close to each other or at the same time towards the end, like something like that could happen. And my hope was we never see Cody, so my thought was maybe Cody is part of the path and helping people. I don't know. That'd be cool.
Yeah,
is Cody that other top secret, assassin clone? I don't know. People are hoping it's Tech. I really don't want it to be Tech.
I don't want it to be Tech either. I think
that I agree. I want the sacrifice to mean something. We can't keep bringing people back.
So how do you feel about? Is it too early to make a judgment call on Asajj coming back? Because like you and I both have said this, you can't bring Tech back because it's and that's it. It makes that whole crying last year over a cartoon worthless if they bring him back, even if it's just him and he's not really him, but it's his body or whatever. Like, so it seems like we both agree on that. Like, he needs to stay gone. Asajj coming back.
I think that only because it was in a book, and I think Filoni and Lucas kind of felt like, well, the books are the books, and like any story, depend who's telling it. The can game, the can with the string. By the time I tell you a story, you tell someone a story, and a story, and a story, the stories become something of its own, and it's different from what it originally started. And that's fine. I get that. That's just good oral history kind of, lesson. So I like that, even adding to that in the mythos. But what bothers me when you're seeing someone on screen, like, and you get Qui-Gon gets him one blade to the gut and he's dead. The Grand Inquisitor, okay, he's got 2 stomachs, he gets to live. Okay. Sabine gets it, they can take her to the hospital, and she gets to live. What? Like, Qui-Gon dies, but everybody else, like, really? Come on, man. Like, so I don't know, like, Reva, you got stabbed twice.
Yeah.
2 times. That's like a no. Like, I don't, those are parts, that's where I get parts of things aggravate me with that, because nobody, by the time we get to New Hope, should know about Luke except for Obi-Wan. Nobody.
Yeah.
So the fact that Reva's wandering out there, no, that's just, that's very bothersome to me. Because even in any of the other lore, anyone that finds out who Vader is pretty much gets choked out or killed.
Yeah.
By Vader.
I mean, Thrawn's even smart enough just to kind of hint. Yeah. No,
Thrawn
right.
knows, but I don't think he really says. I think maybe he had one kind of back and forth, and he was just kind of told not to mention that name again.
Yeah, he's smart enough to put it all together and know that if he says anything, he's probably toast.
Yeah,
but I am glad we didn't get I wanted the answer like everybody else wants the. I mean, this caused the most uproar when we saw her because everyone's like, "Well, she's dead," and here goes Filoni. He's upsetting canon again. Blah blah blah. Then Disney comes out and says, "We're not retconning anything. That it goes along with the story." I was a little bummed we didn't get the story, but I don't think it would have made sense for her to be like, "Well, this is how I'm back to people who don't even know she's dead." So, are we going to find this out? I mean,
I think on another podcast or show, I think someone had the woman who voices her.
And I talked about this because I met Nika when she was signing this for me. If you're watching YouTube, you can see it.
Yeah.
Because I walked up and that's the photo from from today's episode. And I asked the lady, I was like, did she voice this version of Asajj? And she goes, absolutely. So then I went up to Nika and that's when she said, when we were talking, and she goes, "Yeah, this is just a teaser.
Right?
There's so much more to
This is like
come."
an
And
appetizer.
I
There's
think
going to
maybe she
be
got
an
maybe a little bit
entree
of
and
trouble
maybe
for that.
dessert.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
I was kicking myself because we talked about it. That happened on a Saturday. We recorded on Sunday. I'm like, do we say anything? And we're like, nah. She was just telling you that to be like, because you're a fan and you were nice to her. And then all of a sudden it breaks. I'm like, oh, But it was fun to talk to,
know.
and I don't regret it. Like, I don't know if maybe she got in trouble for saying more than she should or whatever, because
I
it didn't
don't
make
think
national
anyone
news.
I
But
can't. No, here's the thing. I told this to my friends. So I pushed my wedding back when we were planning because I had a job to do for Seton Hall Law, and it was their 75th anniversary, and I was photographing like Janet Rio, Tim Russer, Maya Angelou, James Earl Jones. So I was like, James Earl Jones, what day is that? Honey, when we plan a wedding, we're pushing it back to this day. She's like, why? I said, because I gotta shoot that job. She's like, let someone else shoot it. I'm like, it's James Earl Jones. I said, if it was Maya Angelou or any others, absolutely. I said I wouldn't have cared as much. But it was James Earl Jones. They said, I'm gonna be there, man. So I actually brought in 2 of my Star Wars figures and had them in my camera bag. And when I met his assistant, I was talking to her, and she's like, I heard you're a big fan. I said, yeah. And she's like, oh, cool. He's really excited to meet you. So I photographed him doing his speech and everything. And then they had a whole Q&A where people in the crowd can ask questions. And you can't believe how many, could you say this? Or, can you tell us about it? And can't say anything, NDAs. I can't even quote something from Star Wars because that's kind of copywritten.
Yeah.
I know it sounds weird. And so, like, a lot of people are a little disappointed in that. But he really went into depth about his story, about stuttering and stuff. So all that aside, we're ending the event. My friend's like, hey, do you want to get a picture of James Earl Jones? I'm like, yeah. So I get a picture with him, and he's shaking my hand. He goes, so how's it feel to finally get a picture with me after photographing everybody else with me? It must have just been eating at you because I heard you're a huge fan. And I said, yeah. He's like, come on with me. We're going to take the elevator down to the green room. We're gonna go. And I'm like, okay. So I go down. We're on the elevator, and he goes, so let me get this straight. You pushed back your wedding date just to be here to photograph this event so that you can meet me? I said, 100%. I said, that's no lie. And he goes, that's awesome. I can't believe you did that. I said, well, it wasn't like it was like set in stone yet, so it was easy to be like, let's move that back a couple days because I want to do this job. So he's laughing. So he goes down, he signs an 8x10. And he's like, but I know that's not what you really want. He's like, bust out the Star Wars figures. My sister told me. I was like, okay. So I bust them out, and he signed them. He's chatting with me. And he gives me his assistant's card, which I don't know where I have it, but I actually have James Earl Jones's business card somewhere amongst. I moved so many times in the last couple of years. Hopefully I still have it. But it was just a cool experience. And if I ever need anything, I was like, I'm not going to reach out and do that. That was just nice enough to do that. And he goes, well, and I go to shake his hand. Like, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to meet you. I said, you're so iconic and part of my childhood. Like, and I loved you, man. And he started laughing. I said, it wasn't just Field of Dreams and Star Wars. Those are the 2 things that get me. So he laughs and he goes, you didn't get your wedding gift yet. I said, wedding gift? And I'm like, is he pulling out a lightsaber? What's he about to give me? Like, I was like, what? Wedding gift? And he comes over and he whispers in my ear and he goes, I'm in the last 5 minutes. Because Revenge was about to come out. And everyone's asking. He can't say anything. So he whispered in my ear, I'm in the last 5 minutes. I was like, nice. So I know, and I kept that. Like, I was like, Tulsa.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell anybody. At my wedding, a lot of my good friends are all Star Wars fanatics. So, like, I was like, I really want to tell you my kid. Like, I could tell you about photographing James Earl Jones. I just couldn't tell you about that. When it came out, I was like, hey, he told me about it.
That's awesome.
So I kind of had that hint that Luke was going to end up at the last 5 minutes of the first Force Awakens, kind of the same way. I kind of felt like, yeah, he'll be at the very last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I kind of had that inkling just from that experience with Revenge of the Sith. But yeah,
Very
dude,
cool. That's
I think
nothing.
we're gonna get a lot more of these beloved characters. Like
Yeah.
to me, it makes sense. Like when they just started developing Marvel, whether it's for Disney Plus, what do? Oh, let's pick out these. We've got tons of stuff. Let's pick out these cool characters. Okay, Star Wars doesn't need to reinvent new timelines necessarily.
No.
And it's not that we're tired of the same one, but there's so many other things going on at the same time. It's a galaxy. It's not,
Yeah.
this is it. And there's so much complexity to it. So
Mm-hmm.
I would
Agreed.
like
Yeah.
to see a Vader show, like just just dark. You can make it, not for kids. I don't know, because I thought him and Obi-Wan walking down that street, ripping people out of their
He
house,
was
snapping that,
pretty
cashing large
terrifying.
checks. He was killing it. So
Yeah, for sure.
they could do just a whole show on Vader, let alone a show like I'm hoping we'll get a Underground Railroad for Jedi, The Path,
Yeah.
something. I think that would be a really cool story. And honestly, to kind of answer that burning question a lot of us older fans have is we've got all these people popping up, Balin and Shinhan, like all these Force users, all these lightsaber wielding people, but they have been nowhere in existence for, all these other stories and even, side stories. There wasn't many of these Force wielding people around. It was just a few you had fighting them. So I think at this point we need to tie some things together
Yeah,
and be able
I would
to tell
agree.
the story. So maybe we kind of get out of the galaxy for certain people. We can understand more, like getting to pretty isn't just a crazy thing. You just need to figure out how to get back from that galaxy or have a means to.
Yeah.
So maybe, some of these people, these Jedi end up going elsewhere. And also Jedi, really because of the Empire, they're really kind of hidden. They're suppressed. They don't want to be out in public. I mean, in Obi-Wan, they just hung the kid in the town square.
Yeah.
The younger Jedi.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So it's a different time, after they lose. So I'm kind of curious to see what we get. I mean, the Acolyte looks great. It's the wire work on it alone looks like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon good, like really cool martial arts. So I'm really excited to see more of that. That looks a lot cooler than I expected.
Right.
Got some of that Middle Eastern vibe. It looked like they tried to sprinkle a little Batu in there, to give you that little more Galaxy's Edge feel. So I hope we see more of that. I think it'd be great. I don't know. What are your thoughts? What do you think's coming around the bend? Do you think there's some projects to be revealed? Like, I'm hoping we get a Big 3, a Tales of the Jedi, 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that definitely there's something brewing. They've got a plan. They have to. They have to have an idea. Filoni never stops thinking. He had all that time during the writer's strike to be planning and scheming. And I think that probably was exactly what they needed was downtime from producing and writing shows and just thinking about where Star Wars is going to go. Because we've said it a lot of times on our shows, like those creative people don't stop being creative because they're on strike. They may not give anybody the stuff they're working on, but they're not going to stop. So I think they've done some things. I think they've put some stuff in the works. I think there's lots of Easter eggs in these shows to bring it all together. But so your overall thoughts on this episode as far as it goes along with the season 3? Loved it, liked it.
Loved it. I thought it was a solid episode, much better than last week for sure. And I just think it was just a hint of things to come. I mean, the Harbinger, like there's a lot of dark things coming your way. And
I think it's gonna go back to the way it started with that real dark and brooding.
The Harbinger, I think a Harbinger of death. I mean, when I hear that's exactly what I'm thinking. She's warning you that death is coming.
Yeah,
and we saw in the trailer that they are fighting on Pabu at some point.
Was it you all when they're driving that like the gauntlet thing?
That's that secret clone assassin was on that planet.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on. I just think that it's gonna not end well there. Like no one's gonna be safe.
6 episodes left. We have a double episode next week, and they're called Identity Crisis and Point of No Return, so that makes me nervous. But yeah, I can't wait to see what happens. I'm excited. I hope that we get some answers. I hope that this series ends. I hope it is like definitive, but it gives us some answers to things. But Patrick, I want to thank you for coming on. I know that like last time I was on your guys' show, we got to talk for a while afterwards. And I was like, I got to get this guy on the show and talk Star Wars with him.
Thanks,
So
man.
we had a blast afterwards, and we'll definitely want to have you back on because it was great.
I'm going to have you on mine
about
too.
Yourself.
I got to have you on my. I usually do a little podcast segment called "Movies That Inspire the Pop," and I don't do them. I don't do them weekly. I just try to space it out, but I haven't done one in a couple of weeks, so I get back on it. I've been trying different things as well, so and focusing on other things and like real life.
Yeah.
IRL.
Oh yeah.
You know, so it's trying to get those things going and things like that. But yeah, I definitely want you to come on. It's just sometimes I always say it's the conversations after the start stream are some of the. I said we should be recording those.
That's what I said to Lex when we were talking about. This is what we should have been recording and pushing out there. But tell everybody where they can find you one last time, and then I'll let you get going because it's late on the East Coast.
All right. Again, my name's Patrick. I'm on Poptography on YouTube. You can check me out on all the other social media outlets at Poptography YT. And I do creative images of Star Wars Funko Pop. I also do unboxings and reviews and toy hunts. Exciting. I did a video that dropped last night because it took me a little bit. But I actually did the Funko drop NFTs, you know?
Okay.
And I pulled the Grail.
That's what I saw the title for that. I was like, I got to watch this. I don't understand why these things are a thing, but I'm hoping you guys
honestly,
can shed some light on it.
If I didn't get the Grail, I would have been completely crestfallen about it because I didn't get any of the legendaries, and I just look at my collection with I bought 3 premium and 2 standard packs, and I got 50% of the card collection already. And I didn't get any legendary. Like had I not pulled that Grail, I would have gotten no redeemables. And I'm like, that would have sucked.
Yeah,
so,
that would not
a
have
little
been good.
bummer on that. And the only thing I did get the Grail, you know, and I think they burned enough cards, not enough, a lot of cards. I didn't see. And I'm so new to this. I thought they would at least allow the cards to be there for like a week or two, but no, they just burn them. So I think out of 1980. Was available for that. I think only 1,200 were claimed.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when I'm not, you know, on your channel or on, like we always say on the Star Wars podcast, I'm not on here talking Star Wars Funko Pop with them. You can find me over at Poptography.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Jimmy, for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. You take care, man.
You too, buddy.